Bring back in Kellyanne Conway here. Bill Malugin on set with us here in New York. Kellyanne, first response, I know we'll get to China as well, but on the military classified documents leak, he was asked a lot about that just in the last few minutes there. And he said, quote, "We're worried that these documents are out there. They shouldn't be out there, period. They should not be in the public domain," said John Kirby. When asked, are the leaks contained? We don't know. We truly don't know. What was your reaction to what we just heard out of the White House there?
Look, I worked in the White House. These briefings are difficult, but there's a man long on words today, very short on information education of the public. He seemed worried. Seemed like somebody who doesn't have the answers that we all seek and deserve. I mean, Sandra, Bill, this is an administration and a party that's been going after the former president, after documents he may or may not have had in Mar-a-Lago for this, that, and the other. And we have leaks of classified documents as we speak that affect countries, allies, and others around the globe. I thought some of the questions from the press corps were pretty darn good and on point, and they didn't get much of an answer. For example, have you notified our allies who are mentioned? Is this impeding the ability of the U.S. to help Ukraine? And is it impeding Ukraine's ability to defend its sovereignty, its borders, its people? It didn't sound like they had any more information than the rest of us, because key point, Sandra, Bill, John Kirby did not say, "I can't comment on that right now," as former Pentagon spokespeople and folks at the White House often need to say, because information is sensitive and developing. He didn't say that. He basically said, "I don't know. This is unacceptable." He said there's something like there's no room for any kind of tolerance here for these classified documents. But people should be very concerned, because we believe that our government and the Pentagon will keep the secrets safe. There are some things that we shouldn't know, but once they're out in the public domain, we all have a right to know. In fact, I would say an urgent need to know how this is happening and who can stop it. Today, no confidence from the White House podium for the rest of us who are worried about that. He seemed very worried.
And following up on that, what are our allies thinking right now? If they're willing to share some of this secret intelligence with us, primarily Ukraine, giving us numbers of their troop deployments, their weapon needs, where they have people, when they plan on doing things, what are our allies thinking if they hand something over to us and then all of a sudden it's on Twitter, it's online the next day?
It's so dangerous, Bill. It's true. It just sounds like, there's chaos and crisis everywhere we turn. The parts of the world are on fire right now. And those allies need to have faith that they're not going to be in some teenage game of telephone if they give the U.S. access to some of their secrets and their strategies. That has been breached here, and we don't have a good answer. Again, I just want everybody to recognize what John Kirby did not say when asked from the White House podium just now, which is give us faith and comfort that at least those in charge know something we don't. It sounded like he doesn't. And look, just to move on to China very quickly, he said, President Biden looks forward to having another conversation with Xi Jinping. Well, when? Because Vladimir Putin just sat down with him, and we don't have a seat at that table. What would that conversation include that hasn't been included before, about the Uyghurs, about fentanyl, about the origins of the virus, about a technology, stealing our technology, about trade, about everything you can imagine? China, basically, the #1 global threat here and trying to take over the world. So he's not being glib. And I would point out to everyone, they need John Kirby at that podium, because they can't stick these comments into the press secretary's binder and have any level of confidence that she could just read from there and take those questions. But he who is an expert in these areas really did not provide much information today.
Kellyanne, I want to finish off where we sort of started, but it ties all of this in. What we're seeing on behalf of foreign policy by this administration, and to your point, that reporter and to John Kirby just a moment ago saying we've been told this call is coming for months with President Xi of China. We know that the president can pick up the phone and call any time. Why hasn't he just picked up the phone to call? But in this moment, going back to the beginning of our conversation about 2024 and the field and what it could eventually grow to, I put this question to Secretary Pompeo last hour. Listen.
I don't view foreign policy as an opening. I view it as central to the way that we all live here and how our kids and grandkids are going to live. Try to keep politics out of it when it comes to the things that matter to our security here in America. We'll have plenty of time to have that debate. Today is the moment to make sure that America gets this right.
Because knowing that he is out there and considering a run, wouldn't this be the moment, I asked him, for him to jump in the race? So will he? And what does the field eventually look like, Kellyanne?
He may. And look, I think foreign policy and national security will be on voters' minds in the 2024 elections. There's no question, particularly at the presidential level. And I would say for Joe Biden, who was vice president for 8 years, has been in Washington for more than half a century, had been chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, people like me who didn't vote for him and don't want him to be president at least had a little bit of faith that maybe he would be able to work across the aisle and get things done, number one. And number two, be respected around the globe where he had been known for decades. The opposite has happened. We are not respected. We are not accepted. We don't have a seat at the table. I think you're going to see Pompeo, possibly Pence, certainly former President Trump's already in there. I know governors have a great story to tell, but they don't have the foreign policy chops and the national security bona fides that these other folks do. Be very fascinating.
Okay, Kellyanne, great to have you, and thanks for sticking around during the press briefing. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
All right.